KSI has a high chance of beating Jake Paul. I know I made a video about 4 months ago saying how Jake Paul would beat KSI, but a lot has happened since then. And weaknesses of Jake Paul have been exposed as he lost to Tommy Fury and also fought Anderson Silva since then, while KSI has fought and beat FaZe Temper. So with that in mind, it seems like KSI might have a good chance of beating Jake Paul. Now, I'm not saying Jake Paul loses, but I'm saying there are ways KSI wins this. And in today's video, I'll be explaining exactly how KSI can beat Jake Paul. Remember to subscribe, let's get into it. Right off the bat, one thing stood out to me. Jake Paul is just as wild, if not more wild, than KSI. He actually relies on these big overhand rights to land on his opponents to put them away, to the point where he just throws them with his head down, with no form or technique, hoping they land. This is the first big thing KSI can capitalize on. When Jake Paul throws these big right hands, he's facing downwards and almost just throws his hand out randomly, hoping it lands. KSI is looking more and more composed as time goes on. As he learns to throw combinations more effectively, he can use an uppercut to get through to Jake here and hurt him, mixed with the power he has. This is exactly what Tommy was able to do. Land a big uppercut while Jake let his guard go while throwing a huge right. KSI needs to stay composed and wait for the opportunity to throw this. KSI also training to be quicker on his feet and fight on his toes means he can quickly pounce in and capitalize on a situation where Jake is throwing very wildly. It's not just the right hand where Jake lets his guard go. It even happens with a simple jab. When Jake jabs to the body, he faces down and leaves his face widely exposed. Again, KSI here can use that uppercut or a hook to hurt Jake and put him in some danger. This is something which Jake's previous opponents couldn't capitalize on, but Tommy did this, and this is partly what put him ahead on points. So if KSI can exploit Jake's very open position, he could be looking at getting a serious advantage. But this isn't the only thing KSI can exploit. You see, when Jake Paul is pressured and combinations are thrown his way, he doesn't do what any normal boxer would do and back up and try to counter. Jake Paul sort of just stands there and takes the punches. He curls up into a ball, putting his hands up but showing no head movement, and honestly just absorbs the punches. This was not only seen in the Tommy fight, but also in the Anderson Silva fight. When he's pressured, he's a mess. Now, with KSI constantly applying pressure on all of his opponents and also throwing something, whether it's a jab or a full attack, this is dangerous in the eyes of Jake. Jake Paul have to learn not to be so flat-footed and be able to quickly move out of danger when necessary. Otherwise, we'll have a situation where KSI quickly launches an attack and Jake Paul will stand there and take it. Now, this gets even more dangerous for Jake, but we consider that sometimes he has a low guard, and if KSI does something similar to what he did with Temper and pounce in, Jake will be caught off guard, and if he doesn't get knocked out, he'll be on the back foot. Now, this is if KSI is able to apply enough pressure to the point where Jake is startled and put on the back foot. We have to consider that Jake is active in throwing jabs, and KSI might not be able to come in whenever he wants without a response. But if KSI can use his speed and pounce in, Jake may be caught off guard, and anything could happen, honestly. Now, we talked about Jake Paul having very limited head movement, but this brings on a lot more issues than you might think. Predicting where Jake Paul's head's gonna be is a very easy thing, and Tommy Fury did this very well. Tommy Fury was able to land a combination on Jake and then do the same thing again and again and again, with Jake Paul doing absolutely nothing, and it seemed like Jake Paul just kept getting punched by the same punches because he was. Tommy Fury was able to throw the same combinations and it worked multiple times, one after the other. Jake Paul isn't that responsive to these punches and he blocks the punches with his face. So if you're generally accurate, they will land again and again. KSI's biggest strength in this whole situation is probably the fact he's so active and aggressive. He will put the pressure on Jake and will notice these things. KSI will continue to lay the punches on Jake and do exactly what Tommy did, and unless Jake can learn to move his head, be more active in his defense, and generally keep his guard up, KSI will exploit these things. Jake Paul does have many strengths. I think if KSI sticks to a game plan, he could seriously put Jake Paul in danger. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.